Have you ever walked into a room, smiled softly, stood quietly, and felt like no one noticed? Not in a dramatic way, not like in movies or novels, but in that quiet, aching sense that you've slowly become background. Not because you changed who you are, but because the world around you stopped looking. Some mornings after 60, you may wake up and wonder, where did my sparkle go? The one that used to draw laughter at dinner tables, turn heads in cafes, and leave a warmth lingering in a friend's memory. You're not alone in this. In fact, it's one of the most whispered sorrows of aging, not feeling seen. The world races on, careers end, children leave, partners grow distant or pass away, and suddenly, the mirror doesn't just reflect a different body, it reflects a different presence in the world. But here's something I want you to hold on to tonight. Not everything that fades stays gone. Sometimes, what feels invisible is simply waiting to be remembered. Because the truth is, you are not invisible. You are only paused. And today, we'll walk together through 5 gentle shifts, not quick fixes or clever tricks, but heart-level rediscoveries that can quietly light you up again. So if you've ever whispered to yourself, I miss the woman I used to be, stay, because she's still here. She's waiting for your gaze to find her again. She was 67 when she first told me, I think I've become a ghost in my own life. Evelyn had retired 2 years earlier from a teaching job she loved. Her husband had passed 5 years before that. Her kids lived in 3 different states, busy with young families, good intentions, and occasional Sunday calls. At first, retirement felt like freedom. She traveled, took a pottery class, even adopted a senior cat. But slowly, subtly, the days began to blur. She would wake up with nowhere she needed to be, no one she had to care for, no one expecting her presence. That's when the loneliness settled in. Not the loud, desperate kind, the quiet type, the type that makes you stop speaking out loud in your own home. She told me, sometimes I'd go an entire day without using my voice. But then something changed. One morning, while walking past the community library, she saw a flyer. Help 3rd graders learn to read. Volunteers needed. She hesitated. The voice in her head said, that's for someone younger. But her feet stopped anyway. The next week, she sat in a little folding chair beside a shy girl named Lila, who wouldn't read out loud. So Evelyn just smiled, leaned in close, and said, let's make the words come alive together. Weeks passed. Lila began reading, then giggling, then hugging Evelyn's arm. But more importantly, Evelyn began to feel seen again. Not just by the children, but by herself. She started wearing her favorite shade of lipstick again. She wore earrings to the grocery store, even if no one else would see. Not because she wanted attention, but because she remembered she was still here, still worthy of being witnessed. And one day, when she laughed at a joke in the reading room, one of the other volunteers said, Evelyn, you light up this place. That night, she wrote in her journal, I think I'm glowing again. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and real and true. There's a quiet transformation that happens when we cross into our 60s. It's not just the lines on our faces or the silver in our hair. It's in how we begin to move through the world. Slower, smaller, sometimes quieter, and sometimes less visible. But here's the deeper truth. The world doesn't stop seeing us because we age. It often stops seeing us because we start stepping back from being seen. We soften our voice at the dinner table. We avoid eye contact in the grocery store. We laugh less loudly, not because we've lost joy, but because we've lost certainty that anyone is listening. Somewhere along the way, we absorb the message that after a certain age, we are no longer the center of the story. And so we fade, but not because we choose to, because we forget that we still have permission to shine. But let me offer this gentle truth. The way you carry yourself teaches the world how to carry you. Posture is not about vanity. It's about presence. And presence is not about performance. It's about ownership. You've spent decades building stories into your soul. You've endured, guided, given, survived. That is not a presence that needs to apologize. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege does not expire. So tomorrow morning, before the world wakes up, stand in front of the mirror. Place your hand on your heart. Straighten your shoulders. Not for show, but for reverence. Look into your own eyes and say, I still belong. You may be older, you may be slower, but you are still here. And the world will begin to see you again. As soon as you remember how to stand fully in your light. We've been told all our lives that to be magnetic is to be beautiful, to turn heads, to stay thin, to defy time. But that's not magnetism. That's marketing. Real magnetism? It happens when a person walks into the room with presence, the kind of quiet inner peace that makes you feel safe just being near them. You've probably felt it. Sitting across from someone who listens deeply, who doesn't rush to respond, who smiles with their whole soul. Their skin may be wrinkled, their body may be slower, but when they look at you, you feel seen. That is presence. That is what draws people in, not beauty. And here's the gift of aging. Presence gets deeper with time because we're no longer performing. We've lived enough years to stop pretending. We begin to see through things, and because of that, others feel more seen when they're with us. The poet Hafiz once wrote, "An awake heart is like a sky that pours light." To be magnetic after 60, you don't need to change anything about your face, your body, your wardrobe. You simply need to awaken again. Be here, fully, without shame, without defense, without apology. Let your eyes rest on the person speaking to you. Let your laughter rise when it wants to. Let your hands move freely, even if they tremble. Presence is what people remember. Presence is what heals. So I ask you, when was the last time you let yourself be fully in the moment? Not performing, not retreating, but just alive. That's the place your light returns. There's a myth that aging means closure, that at some point our story becomes set in stone with little left to say. But your life is not a memoir. It is still a manuscript in progress, every day still unfolding. It's easy to fall into the belief that the best years are behind me. Society feeds this idea relentlessly, but that's not truth. That's fear. In many cultures, aging is not an ending, it's a deepening. In Japan, there's a philosophy called Nankuru Naisa. Loosely translated, everything will work itself out as long as you live with kindness and patience. What if your next chapter doesn't need to look like your past ones? What if this season isn't about proving, producing, or parenting, but about becoming softer, wiser, freer? Remember Evelyn's story. She didn't think she'd begin again at 67, but her story hadn't ended. It had simply paused, waiting for her to pick up the pen. So I gently ask you, what have you put down that still wants to live? A song you used to sing? A garden you never planted? A part of yourself you set aside while taking care of everyone else? It's not too late. You are still becoming. You are still changing. You are still the author, not the footnote of your life. Many of us have spent a lifetime being evaluated by what we do. Raise good children, keep a tidy home, work hard, stay pleasant, give without asking. And for years, that's how we were seen, by what we offered to others. But after 60, when the roles fade, mother, wife, employee, caretaker, we often find ourselves looking in the mirror and wondering, who am I now if I'm not needed? And that's when a deeper journey begins. Because real self-worth doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being known, especially by yourself. You don't need a title to have worth. You don't need to be productive to have value. You are enough because you are. Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, to be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. So what if you began each day not by fixing something, but by greeting yourself, noticing the lines on your face and honoring the life they came from, noticing your hands and thanking them for what they've carried, noticing your soul and whispering, I see you, I'm proud of you. That's where self-worth lives now, not in what you give away, but in what you're willing to hold sacred within. So ask gently, what if today you stopped waiting to be worthy and simply decided you already are? For so many years, our identities were tied to who needed us. The baby who cried for your arms, the spouse who depended on your steady hand, the coworkers who asked for your strength. There was a kind of purpose in that. Even exhaustion had meaning. But now things have shifted. The silence is louder, the house echoes more. And you may wonder, if I'm no longer needed, then what am I? But here's something deeper to consider. Being needed is powerful, but being lit up from within, that's transformational. When Evelyn started reading to children again, it wasn't because anyone demanded it of her. It wasn't obligation. It was desire. And that desire, that simple wanting, brought her glow back. Sometimes we forget we're allowed to want things, to desire beauty, creativity, laughter, movement, affection, not because someone asked it of us, but because our soul hungers for it. After 60, you have the chance to choose, not out of duty, but out of delight. So I invite you to explore. What brings you alive, even now? What sparks curiosity in you? What makes you lose track of time just for a moment? Even if it's as simple as arranging flowers or humming a tune or writing poetry no one will ever read. That is the spark of aliveness. That is what makes you magnetic. We often think rebellion belongs to the young, the loud, the restless, the unshaped. But soft rebellion, that quiet refusal to disappear, belongs to the wise. It's the woman who cuts her hair short at 72 and dyes it silver blue. It's the man who buys a motorcycle after years of being careful. It's the grandmother who starts painting at midnight simply because it brings her peace. These small sacred acts whisper, I'm still here. I still belong to myself. Soft rebellion is not recklessness. It's a gentle uprising against the idea that you must fade, fold, or vanish after a certain age. Mary Oliver asked, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And maybe your answer now looks different than it did at 30, but it still matters. So rebel softly. Dance slowly in your kitchen. Wear what makes you feel beautiful. Say what you mean, not with sharpness, but with clarity. Let the world adjust to your aliveness, because every time you honor your desire, you remind others. Aging isn't an end, it's an arrival. As we grow older, it's tempting to protect our hearts more fiercely. We've been hurt. We've been disappointed. We've seen how people can forget, walk away, grow distant. So we pull back. We tell ourselves, I'm fine. We smile politely, even when we're lonely. But connection, the deep, nourishing kind, only happens when we take the risk to be seen, not just admired, seen, fully. And yes, that requires vulnerability. It means telling a friend, I miss you. It means calling your daughter and saying, I'd love to hear your voice more often. It means reaching out to someone new and saying, would you like to take a walk? These moments are tender, but they're powerful. Because when you let someone see your truth, you give them permission to do the same. The Buddha taught, you will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by it. And I believe the same is true of loneliness. When we suppress it, it punishes us. But when we speak it, when we allow it to breathe, it often dissolves. So I ask, gently, is there someone in your life who needs to hear the soft truth of your heart? And are you willing to let them in? Connection begins not with the right words, but with an open door. Let's slow down for a moment. Take a breath in through your nose, gently out through your mouth. Now I ask you, softly, what part of you have you stopped honoring? Not because you meant to, but because the world stopped noticing. What do you miss about the woman you were at 30 that still lives in you today? And if you could whisper one sentence to your reflection tonight, a true one, what would it be? You deserve to be heard. By others, yes, but especially by yourself. If something in this message stirred you, even just a little, you are welcome here. This channel, Comfort Corner, is a place for quiet truths, gentle rediscovery, and the beauty of life after 60. We don't rush here, we remember. If you'd like more messages like this, you are gently invited to subscribe. No pressure, just presence. And as we close, I'll leave you with this. You are not behind. You are not fading. You are in a chapter the world rarely talks about, one rich with quiet power. You don't have to become someone new. You only have to remember the light you've always carried and let it shine again.